listen to me for 10 seconds, just 10. There are people in your life who broke your heart, crossed your soul, and walked away without ever saying sorry. And the truth you don't want to hear is this: you may never get closure from them. You may never get justice from them. But you still deserve peace. And I'm here to tell you how to claim it. I want you to take a slow breath with me, in through your nose, out through your mouth, because the kind of pain I'm talking about today isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the ache that shows up when you're brushing your teeth. It's the heaviness in your chest when a memory sneaks up on you in the grocery store. It's the grief of loving someone you had to let go of to survive. Some relationships don't end with a conversation. They end with a realization, a moment where your nervous system finally whispers, "This is not safe for me anymore." And that moment is sacred, even if it's heartbreaking. We grow up believing reconciliation is the only noble ending. That forgiveness must include reunion. That healing requires a handshake and an apology. But that's a myth that keeps us chained to people who don't deserve front row seats in our lives anymore. There are people you can love from a distance. There are people you can release without hating. There are endings that don't come with closure, but still come with clarity. Making peace is not about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about choosing yourself even when your heart is still bleeding. It's about saying, I don't need you to change for me to be free. And if you're carrying a name in your chest right now, someone you'll never reconcile with, I want you to know this: your healing does not require their participation. Your peace is not waiting on their apology. Here's the hardest truth I had to swallow. Not every person who hurts you is capable of understanding the pain they caused. Some people don't have the emotional vocabulary. Some don't have the courage. Some don't have the capacity. And if you keep waiting for accountability from someone who only knows denial, you will bleed forever at the altar of their limitations. I know you keep replaying the conversations in your head, the speeches you'd give if they ever called, the perfect words that would finally make them get it. But listen to me gently now. Clarity doesn't always come from being heard. Sometimes it comes from finally stopping the argument inside your own mind. There is a special kind of grief in realizing the person you needed them to be is not who they are. That grief deserves your tenderness, not your self-judgment. You didn't imagine the harm. You didn't overreact to the betrayal. Your body kept the score long before your mind caught up. Making peace begins when you tell yourself the truth without softening it. This person cannot meet me in honesty, empathy, or repair. And instead of turning that truth into bitterness, you turn it into a boundary. Boundaries are not punishments. They are acts of self-respect. There you saying, I love myself enough to stop chasing people who keep teaching me I don't matter to them. You don't need to villainize them to walk away. You don't need to hate them to be done. You just need to accept that access to your life is a privilege, not a right. And here's the part that will break you open and put you back together. You can release someone and still mourn the version of them you hoped would show up for you. That mourning is not weakness. It's evidence of your deep capacity to love. And one day you'll realize this, the closure you were begging for from them was something you were always meant to give yourself. Let's talk about forgiveness, because this is where so many tender hearts get trapped. You were taught that forgiveness means letting people back in, that if you don't reconcile, you're bitter, immature, or not healed yet. And I need you to hear this with your whole body. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can forgive someone and still decide they are not safe for your life. You can forgive someone and still choose distance as your form of self-protection. Forgiveness is something you do for your nervous system, not something you hand out as a reward for bad behavior. Real forgiveness sounds like this: I am done carrying this anger in my bones. I am done letting this story steal my sleep. I am done reliving what you did to me every time I'm triggered. That's not weakness, that's emotional sovereignty. Some of you are clinging to rage because it feels like the only proof that what happened to you mattered, but your pain does not disappear just because you stop hating the person who caused it. Your story doesn't get erased because you choose peace over punishment. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Meanwhile, they're out there living their lives, and you're stuck replaying a scene that already ended. Making peace doesn't mean you approve of what they did. It means you refuse to let what they did define who you become. And here is the holy truth no one told you. Sometimes forgiveness is quiet. It's not a ceremony. It's not a letter you send. It's a moment in your kitchen or your car or your bed where you whisper, "I'm choosing myself now." That's when healing stops being performative and starts being real. Now I want to talk about the fantasy of reconciliation. Because if you're honest, part of you is still waiting for the text, waiting for the apology, waiting for the moment they finally show up different, softer, wiser, remorseful. And I need you to hear this without shame, that hope is not stupid. It's human. Hope is what we do when we love deeply. Hope is what we do when we attach meaning to someone who once felt like home. Hope is what we do when our inner child is still begging for repair. But here is the heartbreak and the liberation in the same sentence. Sometimes the person you need closure from is the same person who will never give it to you. And if you keep your life on pause, waiting for them to become safe, you are handing them the rest of your story. There is a moment in healing that feels like betrayal of your own heart. It's the moment you stop waiting. It's the moment you say, even if you never change, I am still going to build a beautiful life. That moment will feel cold at first, lonely. Final, you will grieve not just the relationship, but the future you imagine with them in it. You will grieve the conversations that never happened. The holidays that will never look the way you dreamed. The version of yourself that kept trying to fix what you didn't break. And I want you to know that grief is not a setback. It is the doorway. You don't make peace by rewriting the past. You make peace by refusing to sacrifice your future to it. Some people are chapters, not the whole book. And the bravest thing you will ever do is close a chapter you still love, because staying in it is costing you your life. Let's talk about your body for a moment, because your body has been telling you the truth long before your mind was ready to hear it. Every time their name popped up on your phone and your stomach dropped, every time you walked into a room and your shoulders tightened because you didn't know what version of them you were going to get, every time you left a conversation feeling smaller, confused, or ashamed, that wasn't weakness, that was wisdom. Your nervous system is not dramatic, it is precise. It scans for danger and safety all day long. And when someone repeatedly violates your trust, your dignity, or your emotional reality, your body starts sounding the alarm. Making peace with someone you'll never reconcile with means learning to trust that alarm instead of gaslighting yourself into silence. You don't need 10 more data points. You don't need one more chance. You don't need to explain your pain more clearly. The pattern is the closure. Some of you keep reopening the wound because part of you is still trying to turn an unsafe person into a safe one. That's not love. That's trauma bonding. Read this slowly. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. Peace begins when you stop negotiating with your own intuition. When you stop saying, maybe it wasn't that bad, or maybe I'm too sensitive, or maybe this time will be different. No, your body already kept the receipts. And here is the permission slip you've been waiting for. You are allowed to walk away from people who cannot love you without hurting you. You are allowed to choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, safety over familiarity. That choice will feel selfish to the version of you who was taught to abandon themselves to keep the peace. But to the healed version of you, it will feel like coming home. Now let's talk about the guilt, because that's the chain that keeps so many good people in prison. The guilt of leaving, the guilt of not trying harder, the guilt of choosing yourself when you were trained to choose everyone else first. Some of you were raised to believe that loyalty means self-abandonment. That being a good person means tolerating disrespect. That love means endurance, no matter the cost to your soul. And that belief is quietly killing you. Making peace with someone you'll never reconcile with requires you to break a generational curse, the curse of responsibility. You are not responsible for fixing what you did not break. You are not responsible for managing another adult's emotions. You are not responsible for carrying the consequences of their choices. Read that again, slowly. You can be compassionate and still be done. You can understand their trauma and still refuse to be their collateral damage. You can love someone and still say, I will not let you keep hurting me. Guilt shows up when your growth threatens a dysfunctional system. Of course, they're uncomfortable with your boundaries. Your boundaries expose their behavior. Your healing disrupts the role you used to play in their life. And here's the raw truth. Some people only love the version of you they could control. So when you start choosing yourself, they call you cold. They call you selfish. They call you dramatic. Not because you are, but because you are no longer convenient. Let that grief move through you. Let the guilt rise and fall like a wave. Don't build a house in it. You are not a bad person for walking away from someone who refused to meet you in respect. You are a brave person for choosing a life that doesn't require you to disappear to be loved. Let's talk about the stories you keep telling yourself at 2 a.m., the ones that sound like this. If I were more patient, they would have changed. If I had said it better, they would have understood. If I were less sensitive, this wouldn't have hurt so much. Those stories are not truth. They are trauma trying to make sense of chaos. When something ends without repair, your brain goes hunting for control. It would rather blame you than accept that someone you loved simply did not have the capacity to love you well. Self-blame feels safer than helplessness. At least if it's your fault, you can fantasize about fixing it. But here is the liberating truth. Their inability to show up for you is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their emotional limits. You did not fail at loving them. You succeeded at loving someone who could not meet you in the same depth, honesty, or accountability. Some of you are still auditioning in your imagination for a role that has already been cast. You're still trying to become easy enough, quiet enough, perfect enough to finally earn the love you should have received for free. That is not healing. That is self-erasure. Making peace means you stop rewriting your identity around someone else's dysfunction. You stop shrinking your needs to make room for their avoidance. You stop calling breadcrumbs a feast. You were not asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. And when that truth finally lands in your body, not just your mind, something sacred happens, your shame dissolves. You stop chasing people who can't love you, and you start building a life with people who don't make you beg for basic human decency. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom earned the hard way. Now, I want you to imagine a life where your heart isn't on hold, where your mornings aren't shadowed by replaying old conversations, and your evenings aren't stolen by the weight of what could have been. This is the life you deserve. But to step into it, you have to stop negotiating with ghosts. Making peace with someone you'll never reconcile with requires radical acceptance. Not the kind that tells you to like what happened, but the kind that says, this happened, it hurt, and now I am going to live anyway. Acceptance is not surrender. It's reclamation. It's reclaiming your time, your joy, your energy, and your emotional bandwidth from someone who is not capable of holding them for you. Some of you are terrified of this because you think releasing someone is losing love. But releasing someone isn't losing love. It's preserving it. Preserving it for the people who will cherish it. Preserving it for yourself. Your love is too sacred to leave scattered at the feet of someone who cannot return it with integrity. And here's the paradox. When you finally stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you become untouchable in the most beautiful way. You stop needing validation. You stop waiting for permission. You stop carrying the burden of someone else's emotional immaturity. You will feel lighter. You will feel freer. You will start noticing the quiet spaces in your life that have been waiting for you all along. The space for new relationships, new experiences, and even new versions of yourself. Making peace is not a single act. It is a daily practice. It is choosing yourself again and again. Even when your old wounds whisper, you're abandoning them. And here's the truth that will shock you by letting go. You are not losing your story. You are finally taking ownership of it. Let's talk about courage, because peace with the irreconcilable requires it in ways most people don't anticipate. It's not the loud, heroic kind of courage that makes headlines. It's the quiet, stubborn kind that shows up in your living room when you decide not to send the message, not to chase the apology, not to prove yourself right. Courage is choosing yourself when every fiber of your being wants to reach back. Courage is whispering to your trembling heart, I will survive this. I will thrive anyway. Courage is sitting with grief without numbing it, without needing to turn it into drama or revenge. There will be moments, weeks, even months, where it will feel unbearable. Old habits die slowly. Your mind will try to convince you that letting go is weakness, that peace is cowardice, that moving on is betrayal. That's fear masquerading as wisdom. Recognize it, name it, and choose differently. You are allowed to mourn the person they were, the dreams that will never come true, the love that existed only in possibility. You are allowed to honor that grief, but you are not allowed to let it define your life, not anymore. Here's the secret. Every time you set a boundary, every time you release someone from your heart without them asking, every time you refuse to enter a toxic cycle, you are practicing bravery. You are rewriting your story from the inside out. You are proving that love and strength can coexist, that tenderness does not require permission, and that your worth is non-negotiable. And when you finally internalize this, something extraordinary happens. You stop waiting for the world to make you whole. You stop relying on others for your peace. You claim it fully, fiercely, and unapologetically, because that is your birthright. This is the courage of someone who will never reconcile, but will always rise. Here is the ending, and it's both simple and profound. Peace does not mean forgetting. Peace does not mean pretending the hurt didn't exist. Peace does not mean inviting them back into your life or shrinking to make room for their absence. Peace means you are done carrying the weight of someone else's choices. It is the quiet, fierce declaration, I will not let your inability to show up dictate my happiness. It is choosing yourself when it feels impossible. It is turning the page on a chapter that still aches, knowing that the story isn't over, it's just taking a new direction. Some days you will feel grief. Some days anger will rise like a storm. That is normal. Peace is not about being unfeeling. It's about being intentional. It's about holding space for every emotion without letting it rule you. It's about learning to walk forward with dignity, even when the past whispers your name. Making peace with someone you'll never reconcile with is a revolutionary act. It is saying, I am bigger than this hurt. I am wiser than this betrayal. I am braver than this fear. It is giving yourself permission to live fully, unapologetically, and without waiting for their permission. And here's the gift. Once you make peace, you free yourself to love again, not the fantasy of who they could have been, but the real people who are capable of showing up for you fully. You free your heart to belong where it is truly wanted. You reclaim your story, your joy, and your life. So let this be your promise. You will grieve. You will remember. You will ache. But you will not stay chained. You will rise. You will choose yourself. And in that choosing, you will finally be free.